Spencer, hey bud, happy Friday to you.
Happy Friday. Please introduce yourself.
Roman Christopher Rogers. My dad would be proud I threw in the middle name there. But it's currently a trimester 8 of 10 student at Parker University. So I just started to see some patients, but I've been in Dallas for, almost 3 years, coming up on 3 years. And I first met you, Spencer, over at the big black building on Washington Street, I believe. And we've kind of been hanging out back and forth ever since. But I'm just a guy in Dallas trying to provide some healthcare to people.
Yeah, man, that's about all you could hope for. And I guess we've known each other as long as you've been in school at Parker. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah.
And one of the things that we've shared over coffee is a similar ethos, a philosophy of helping people. Tell us just a little bit about what you want to do once you graduate from school, and like elaborate a little bit on the model that you're interested in pursuing.
When people ask me that, I never want to lead with, I'm going to be a chiropractor, because I want to be so much more than that. I want to facilitate people becoming their best self, which I think never ends. I think people will kind of slap a label on a chiropractor as a rack and crack or pop and stop, and you just give them a little tap on the butt and I'll see you next time in a week and let's hope that works out. But I think there's so much more involved in healthcare, and I guess I'll answer that by saying my ultimate patient will always be in pursuit of their best self, and I want to be along for that ride.
I totally get what you mean about having like a particular skill set that seems to fit the mold of XYZ, but to try to apply that in a refreshing way. Because at some point, it's like all the ingredients that we have to cook with are established. Like no one's going out and inventing another spice or protein.
No, right.
But
right.
The way that we can recombine these things to give this really good experience, and the way that we can recombine these things to take care of people like you described, I think is what is really exciting about being in healthcare, and also what's exciting about owning your own business. So not to go into great detail, but some of those components that you think would be a part of that are what, right? Because it wouldn't be a traditional, like you said, chiropractic office, but a lot of the things that you've learned even before Parker, you were in strength conditioning, you've coached functional fitness, you have a background in sport. Like some of those things are aspects you want to incorporate. Is that right?
Yeah, I would like the line between you and me to be as blurry as possible.
So to have kind of a one-stop shop where people aren't just coming to you for something being wrong or a rehabilitative purpose, but like you said, it's this long-term model where you have ways of helping them at the different stages of their journey, as a client, or I guess we could use the word as an athlete. Is that right?
Yeah, and it I guess you're familiar with the continuum. There's sickness and there's wellness. I think often a chiropractor will see someone towards the sickness side of things and progress them across. But there's almost like a finish. Like I'm going to see you from this point of the continuum to this point, and then you need to go to a gym to get to the second half of this thing. Where I think someone that wants to go to a gym can start here and work across, but I also think that someone wants to go to a clinic can start a little bit closer to wellness and still be working to that.
For that continuum to be like a valid theoretical model, it means that everything has to be in line with any of those particular set points. What I was saying was, I think it's easy to say, oh, well, I'm really physically fit, or I don't have any injuries, so that means I'm at this place along the continuum, like much better than I am. Mm-hmm. But one, I think the body keeps score. So some of the things that you're getting away with right now, you won't be able to get away with long term. I think that's where pathology and, you know, motor patterns and even like slight dysfunction and, you know, deviations from ideal form, it's like, it's no big deal. But it's always a big deal. It's just at what point is it the tipping point? And then I also think, man, the thing that I'm interested in is like the psychological aspect of this, and how, you know, you could be biologically and socially very fit, but psychologically you wouldn't have that same correlate of wellness. You would be much, much lower. And if that's the case, then it means, hey, you're not actually really fit. Like, you're not super well like you think you are. Like, all things have to be in line with that. And I'll stop monologuing here, but, you know, sometimes I wonder, can we bite off all of that? Like, is that too much to, because some parts of this are really hard to quantify. It's easy to quantify if somebody has pain or if there's dysfunction in movement. It's a lot harder to quantify, like you said, is somebody actually reaching their personal potential? Because at that point you go from very general to like very specific, very individualized. I don't know. What do you think about that? I'll stop talking now.
Yeah, no, I was captivated. I was all in on that. But so going back to where you started, that continuum,
yeah,
it doesn't really account for anything mental going on. And something that my curriculum provided me was the chance to talk about the mind and how it works in patient care, how it works in healthcare and wellness. And as I started to get introduced to that in the curriculum, COVID hit. And that threw everybody for a loop mentally, as far as my peers in the student body. And I'm sure it also threw a wrench in everything that was going on in the chicken world. In fact, I know that. And it's so interesting. I feel like we've talked about this before, but a lot of your videos on your channel that I've been keeping up with, they've started to introduce the kind of mental approach to working out, and how it doesn't need to be show up at 6 a.m., kick your own ass every single day. It can be an enjoyable process. But for most people, when they'll come in to see someone for healthcare, they're injured, so they have some kind of emotional baggage. And I think it would also be doing that patient or that client a disservice if that BPS model wasn't approached. And BPS is going to be your bio, your psycho, your social. And that model was founded by George Engel, who was born on December 10th, 1913. Probably the best day to have a birthday, because your boy was born on December 10th. But anyways, big digression there. But so he was a internist and a psychologist, in Rochester, New York. And I had never heard of an internist before, but it's basically an MD for internal medicine, which is really involved with your organs, your internal organs, and so a lot of those diseases are going to be progressive in nature. And so for him to be an internist and a psychologist, he saw people's mind go right down the gutter with their disease. So he developed this biopsychosocial model and broke it down as bio, your muscles, your tissues, but also your biomechanics, how those move. Your psycho, which is where the mind starts to interject and take any stimulus as positive or a negative experience, or just how the body receives input, how the body takes that psycho. And then there's also social, your work, your community, your environment, but also your upbringing. And a lot of times that social can kind of nudge behavior as care is progressed. So from that BPS model, which kind of has reared its head during COVID. There's been the development of, or the use of, a yellow flag, which is something that I would say is kind of like an aversion to care. It's something is indicated within that B, that P, that S, that is kind of inhibiting progress with care. So it's going to kind of get in the way of full wellness, full healing, something like that. And up until I was taught that in the curriculum, I thought it was very easy. This is just everything's going to be a bio problem from here out. I'm just going to be working on tissues. I'm just going to be adjusting the spine, and that's going to be it. But this whole idea of BPS and the yellow flag has become very interesting to me.
So yellow flag meaning like, hey, proceed with caution. Like this thing is the potentially limiting factor in them getting better. Is that right? Is that what that
Yes.
is?
Yeah, yellow, almost like a stoplight. So starting with the green flag, go, proceed with care. And then all the way back, here's the red flag, stop. That could be an indication for cancer, a fracture. And that's something we would have to go get imaging for or refer out just to check all our bases, because we don't want to cause any more damage. It would almost be like a contraindication to care. And then that yellow flag is going to be somewhere in the middle.
Is there a way that you guys go about that? Like, is there a system to determine, is it a questionnaire? Is it a diagnostic or an assessment that you go through? What does that look like?
I would honestly say, obviously I don't know every healthcare provider out there, but a lot of people don't address it. But it would be something I like to do. And it's just being very direct. I think communication with the client has become increasingly important. And especially in the context of identifying a yellow flag, you can't shy away from a direct question. Something like, what are your goals?
Mm-hmm.
What is your biggest fear during care? Do you think I can help you?
Yeah.
You know, you can't be scared to ask those questions.
Yeah.
And I know you were kind of doing that at CFDC, and I thought that was absolutely incredible. Kind of vetting out, are you going to be an active participant in your fitness? Are you going to be an active participant in your care? Total soapbox here, but I don't like the term patient, because it implies that they can be patient, they can be passive, they can be hands-on.
That's good.
When really care, like fitness, needs to be an autonomous choice for them. They need to take care of, like, we'll help as much as we can. We'll give you everything you want along the way. We're hitched to their trailer, and we're gonna keep them going along.
Man, I was thinking back to what you said, like, you know, if somebody were to come in to you and they're like, oh, my back hurts, and you just say, hey, how's your relationship with your wife? They would say, like, what are you doing? But I also think that would be really cool if someone was like, oh man, thank you so much for asking. And that's something that seemingly unrelated was actually very much connected. And I think that, like, from a patient standpoint or a client standpoint, or, you know, it's like it's creating this relationship, because that's really, when you boil it down, what you'll be doing with these guys. And I think it's the best way to frame what it is that we do, because also, like, the doctor-patient paradigm, it makes it seem like, hey, I'm a doctor, I know everything, you're a patient, you're an idiot, you're injured, you're in my office, so listen to everything that I say, or don't.
Right.
You can see the same thing for, like, a coach and an athlete. It's like, hey, I'm all knowing and powerful, I have all this experience, you listen, I know what I'm talking about. And I found that very rarely draws out, like, some of these things that are unrelated, because in that context, and I think that's why the biopsychosocial model came into existence, because before that, It was like, hey, let's just address the symptoms. Hey, let's just address this one thing. And to a certain extent, that's effective because it's consistent. But ultimately, it doesn't allow us to have a relationship with that person. It's very much transactional. Hey, this is broken. Let me fix it. Okay, you're done. Hey, you're fat. Let me get you skinny. Okay, you're done. And I think the best way to go about these relationships is for it to be more like equal footing. And I think one of the best things we've ever said to people is like, hey, I want to evoke the best version of yourself out, which means I need free access to these things that you don't think are related, but I do. But everything that I'm going to talk about and address is actually along the same train of thought as this one thing that you said was important to you. Do I have permission to talk about those things? And most of the time, you know, unless you're an asshole, you're like, I guess so.
Right. And they've already walked in your door.
Yeah.
Right. So there's a part of them that wants to be there, or maybe they don't want to hold that conversation about their wife, but they at least want to be in that space. So if you start with that kind of confidence to hold that conversation, I think it'll go a lot better. And if you come from a place of educating, so this is not, like you said, this is not a downhill, I'm talking down to you, I'm providing care to you because you don't know, you're inept. Let's meet where we are and kind of, I'll bring you up with me and we'll be educated together. Yeah, I think education and empowerment is incredibly valuable, especially now.
The only bummer is that it takes time. You know, the only advantage of just, what did you say, crack? What was the term you said, crack what?
Rack and crack.
Yeah, rack and crack, super efficient. You know, that's 10, 15 minutes and you're out the door. I mean, we can churn them. If all I'm doing is just breaking people off with workouts, I can jam 30 people in here all day long. But as soon as you want to have a relationship with somebody, like that's at some point an individual process. And I think you know, some of the criticisms of this is that it just doesn't allow you to maybe handle the volume that you potentially could. But to that I say, well, who cares?
That's a great, no, I've been a bartender before, and that 5 second friend is valuable in the world, but I'd rather have one patient that I see 1,000 times than 1,000 patients that I see one time, because I think I'll be creating change for that one.
I think so. And then, you know, even from, we've talked a lot just about, you know, business and entrepreneurship. And, you know, at some point, I think the beauty of this is that, well, yeah, you don't handle thousands of people, but you can train others to have the same type of impact that you feel like you've been instrumental in, whereas you can spread the web like a little bit further. But I think when it comes down to it, the reason to do it like this is just because it's right. Like, it's just the right thing to do. So how much longer do we have in school? Remind me.
Yeah, I'm here until December of this year. So it's March on Monday. What a trip. But I'm here for essentially 9 more months.
And at this point, you're actually seeing patients at the school.
Yeah, can't see enough of them. Bring them all. I'm just kind of starting out, obviously, only 2 months in, but my schedule's largely open. I'm itching to see anybody and everybody.
So if somebody watches this and they actually want to come see you, how would they go about that?
Honestly, I would love for them to contact me first, and that's through my cell phone. It would be 760-695-2878. Oh
man, you're a brave
Is that all right?
That must be a
Is that, should I not?
Oh, it's all good.
I'm either brave or I'm desperate. I'm trying to see some people.
Well, dude, in that context, thanks for taking time to chat with me. It's super interesting to hear the perspective that you have. And we're also going to be hanging out on the 12th of March for the next 3 Fridays here at the gym for a little soiree, a little stinking drink, if you will. And Roman's going to be lending his specialties to us, so that'll be cool as well.
Absolutely. I'll be posted up trying to mingle with all the people, but please feel free, ask me any questions you have. Come get some soft tissue work done, what have you, before you get your workout in.
Super cool, man. Well, thanks for your time and good luck with the boards tomorrow. Did I say that right?
Yeah. I'm gonna look back on this recording at some point and be like, oh man, I was in it. I was studying for boards during that time. That was a lot. But yeah, boards tomorrow.
All right, man. Thank you.
Spencer, thank you.